What is going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Daily Energy News Beat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Saturday, December 16th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsBeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here in Dallas. Love it.
Absolutely. Love to be close with you. Glad to have you in town all week. But we have a weekly recap coming up, Stu, where we cover the top segments from the week. It's an absolutely great week. We had two solo shows from you and myself, and then we spent a lot of time breaking down what happened at COP28, some good opinion articles from some of the longtime friends of the show. So absolutely wild week. I'm going to leave it up to the team to decide what the top segments for the week was, guys. But before they give you that, as always, the news and analysis you are about to hear is brought to you by the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com, the best place for all of your energy news. Stu and the team do an absolutely outstanding job keeping that website up to speed with everything you need to know to be at the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy business. Follow us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts at Energy Newsbeat. You can also check us out, dashboard.energynewsbeat.com. You can hit us up, questions at energynewsbeat.com. But I'm kind of a breath, though, Stu. I'm going to kick it over to the weekly recap. We'll see you guys on Monday.
So let me start off with Russia's shadow fleet. Michael and I have been talking about this for a very, very long time. The shadow fleet is old tankers that have being bought by Iran, Venezuela. There's an estimated 500 to 600 tankers in the fleet. They take their transponders, they turn them off. They'll meet with a legitimate tanker. Here's the catch. These tankers are not insured through the normal insurance companies for oil. If something happens and these rust buckets have a problem, let me bring up this one right here. This rust bucket, one of the best movie lines that's out there says, "I think I need a tetanus shot just from looking at it." That was from Up Periscope with Kelsey Grammer. This is an amazing movie. It's a Bloomberg video that they have had a excellent aging discussion or of the aging fleet that's out there. And they're a direct response to the weaponization of the US dollar that has gone on. This weaponization of the US dollar is going to come back and bite the US in the bahonkas. It is not going to be pretty. So in this article, it says this little piece of paper on a dark ship may say that it's insured, but it's not worth the paper it's written on, said Simon Lockwood, a Marine executive with the insurance broker. 2/3 are carrying Russian crude are now insured by unknown. So these tankers are registered to I don't know, and they are insured by unknown or who knows. So this is a Abbott and Costello skit waiting to happen. I was planning on that today. Michael was out on assignment. We'll have to come up with that again some other time. So with that, how this plays in, and this is an excellent video. It's worth all your time to watch it. The key thing is this plays into OPEC and OPEC plus because they're worried that all their OPEC members are producing more than their quotas, their quotas that are imposed on them and that they're allowing or they're going to do. In fact, Brazil says, we are now in OPEC. And oh, by the way, we're going to go ahead and produce everything that we can anyway. The CEO of Petrobras just basically put that out last week. I love this article from the standpoint that with COP, I had the pleasure of producing Ray Trevino's podcast with Grace Stanke. She is the Miss America 2023, And also, I also put a short out and want to give a shout out to Grace. She is a nuclear engineer graduating, I believe, this month. And I mean, she is one sharp young lady. And I mean, she was in Dubai. It was midnight in the US and it was 9 a.m. and she was on fire. So excellent. Want to give her a shout out. But this is an interesting article saying that COP no longer needs the COP circus. The UN has been putting this on for a very long time. I couldn't agree more. But when we sit back and say that humanity and the markets know the best path, that's kind of a misnomer from the standpoint that they're still printing a lot of money. The energy hypocrisy from Bill Gates and BlackRock is out there. BlackRock is saying that, oh, ESG funds have lost billions of dollars. They lost over $5 billion in their ESG funds. It's now okay to invest in oil and gas. There's a little bit of energy investing hypocrisy. Bill Gates came out and said, oh, by the way, climate change is not going to kill us. He's now rescinding that. I saw an interview with him saying, oh, no, it's now bad. Somebody must have got to him. So I'm not totally sure that it is 100% they're saying that. But we are seeing the oil and gas companies. Let's take Saudi Arabia and Dubai. Saudi Arabia is using their oil profits in order to pay for green energy. Again, as I've always said, Saudi Arabia, I don't agree with everything socially that they do, but I applaud the leadership for taking care of Saudi Arabia first, taking the oil and gas profits, and then moving to renewables and funding both. That is actually an applaudable thing to go forward with. And so the fact that there were so many oil companies there and so many of the green agenda folks that were not pleased by that, the best thing about COP was nuclear. The 22 countries that signed the nuclear deal is phenomenal. We need all forms of energy. You hear me say this all the time, but we need nuclear. We need natural gas. We need oil because as you sit back and think, Ronald keeps telling me, you cannot build an iPhone from a wind farm. You have to have oil. The Just Stop Oil folks need to check their living standards.
Major grid operator warns legal agreement to shutter coal plant will devastate electric liability. This is a really interesting article here. We have in a follow-up letter obtained by Fox Business this week, PJM Interconnection, which oversees the electric supplies across the mid-Atlantic, repeatedly warned of a shutdown of the Brandon Shores coal plant, is warned that the shutdown of this brand will occur in the Maryland area, will result in 1 million customers having, quote, degraded grid reliability, which includes the entire city of Baltimore. The plant's operator confirmed that they are deactivating that Brandon Shores coal plant in June 2025 as part of an agreement with, you guessed it, the Sierra Club. I mean, that's the crazy part. We're taking our grid reliability advice from the Sierra Club. This is an interesting quote from PJM President CU Manitab. As you are aware, Talon is currently prevented from continuing to run without conversion beyond its stated devaction date under a reliability must-run framework to a private agreement it entered in with you. Neither PJM, the federally designated regional grid operator charged with maintaining grid reliability, nor the state of Maryland is a party to this agreement. I mean, are you kidding me, folks? So the owners of this coal plant, who are they again? Texas-based Talon Energy. They made a private agreement with the Sierra Club, not the government, not the EPA, not another actual government jurisdiction. The Sierra Club, again, the Sierra Club. He goes on to say this situation requires immediate attention. Failure to come to a resolution on this could result in the degrade grid reliability for over 1 million Maryland customers during peak hours, including the entire city of Baltimore for years. And for years between the state, blah, 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 blah. Point of the matter is, guys, this is what happens when you let I don't want to say non-experts, because anyone's an expert now, and experts are always wrong. We've seen that time and time again. But when you let people who are so far detached from the actual ground operations to make the rules, Sierra Club doesn't know what's going on in Maryland or Baltimore. They could care less. They're sitting somewhere, probably in their really nice New York City penthouse conference suite that they've got, pretending to be, care about the environment. But really what they're trying to do is shut down and increase the grid irreliability. It's absolutely unbelievable. We've got an issue now with so much solar that we can't get, and wind that we can't get hooked up to the grid. But now we're shutting off coal exactly when we need it, and we can't necessarily get the same grid reliability. It's absolutely unbelievable. Again, I'm all for shutting down coal. It's clear that there's a huge amount of emissions that come from coal. But move it to natural gas. Where is the solution on how to transition this source? They're just going to shut it down. Well, Sierra Club, you're just going to shut it down? Do you live in Baltimore? It's clear they don't live in Maryland. It's clear the headquarters of the Sierra Club are not in Maryland. It's absolutely unbelievable. The letter further goes on to say that both the Sierra Club and Talent Energy should amend the agreement to allow the coal plant to continue providing power for customers until the necessary transmission projects are completed. According to the PJM, prematurely closing Brandon Shore sparks the need for new infrastructure to transport electricity from other sources. But such transmission upgrades aren't expected to be finished in Maryland until 2028, 3 years after the planned Brandon Shores close. Well, it's only 3 years, guys. You'll survive, right? I mean, you'll be fine. Does it snow in Maryland? I don't even know. Probably doesn't snow. You'll be fine. I've gone the other way on this one. Shut it down. I'm kidding. But, I mean, in all reality, folks, this is, again, the problem when you mix ideology with common sense. Obviously, these people have the ideology of shut coal down. The problem is they're not thinking of the second order effects. The PJM, again, this is a federal grid operator. Okay, so this isn't necessarily, some, crazy, Republican style, grid, it's not the Electric Reliability Council yes, of course they're going to say the grid's unreliable. It's part of their job. The interesting part of the matter is that these guys, again, are fairly nonpartisan. They just want to deliver energy to as much people as possible. It's why we have these grid operators, these large scale grid operators. It's pretty interesting. They operate they serve 65 million customers and sell and coordinate movements of wholesale electricity in 13 states. So they know what they're doing here, and they're not necessarily in it as much as you would think for profit, but as they are for grid reliability. So just like that, we're shipping off coal. Again, not a bad thing, but we're doing it without the idea. Thanks to the Sierra Club. Gotta love it. I gotta love it.
What this one has been going off around the world. The article is The Geopolitical Problem of the U.S., a German-Russo-Japanese connection. He's talking about some connections in our podcast that George was on. Go listen to that for some folks. It's an hour 50 minute podcast, and I tell you what, George is a academia, energy, geopolitical guru. And what we're talking about here is energy. You may have a country that you think is your ally. If you can't support their low-cost energy, they are not your ally. We may be losing Japan to Russia in order to get these pipelines done, and the U.S. is not going to allow that to happen. This is a problem. The reason why Germany is more important than Japan is that Germany world consists of Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, which shares a border with Germany on the Danube River. If the German oil and gas pipeline network is connected to Russia by any pipeline, then it could not only supply all the German world, but the Danube River and Slavic world as well. You see why the Nord Stream was blown up?
Yeah, I mean, this series that you're rolling out and will be rolling out with George McMillan is absolutely incredible. I think you highlight some interesting stuff. Well, it's clear that well, I thought it was the Ukrainian SEALs.
Oh, yeah, and on a sailboat, they went out on a
Yep.
3 hour cruise to blow
Yep.
up the pipeline and only got 3 out of the 4.
Yeah.
So no, and that was such a deep water event. A sailboat ain't gonna get the men there and back. So what are they, kamikaze pipeline bombers? I'm not buying it. Chevron CEO cautiously optimistic on Venezuelan-Guyanese border dispute,
Oh, thank goodness.
downplays military conflicts. Thank goodness. Now, here's the thing. I was on the energy transition on Monday talking to Armando, David Blackman, and Tammy. That's a heck of a panel. And you get some Scooby like me on there. It's pretty much an honor. But here's the problem. Chevron is the only oil major to have operations in Venezuela. The company recently agreed to buy Hess Corp for 53 billion, which would give it a 30% stake in the Guyana offshore oil development. Michael, as an investor, when you're playing with your phone, would you sit back and take a look at on calculate out, is that deal actually going to go a good thing now that this is going on, or is it wasted money?
Well,
That's a $53 billion rut row.
yeah, here's the thing. I think clearly Chevron did some due diligence on this. And if they didn't, shame on them and they deserve to lose that investment because you should have, it's not hard to hire a couple consultants to map out the geopolitical risk of, purchasing this asset. What do they have boots on the ground? Do they have stuff? I would be shocked if they didn't necessarily take this into account. I think this is not, having talked with a few people, closer to this situation. I actually have a friend of mine who's very close, who's
Oh,
from
cool.
Venezuela, and he said this is nothing more. And then I'm quoting him. I'll leave him anonymous, but the word I got from him is this is nothing more than show from Venezuela. They'll never actually invade. This is more so that Maduro can come back to his people during an election and say, well, the reason why we don't have any electricity is because the Americans cut us out of Guyana, which, sure, maybe there's some territorial dispute there, but that's not going to change how
How
this
does
oil, in my opinion, outside of a military conflict, nothing's going to change hands. And again, as Mike Wirth, CEO of Chevron, said, that's unlikely. So I'm with him, but hopefully they did their due diligence on this.
I think there's a little more to this story than your friend is thinking through.
Right?
And you have Venezuela, who used to have a gigantic oil field equipment and everything else. They have destroyed it,
Yep.
and so instead of taking $1 million, the way that he has kept control, the dictator there, he pays his generals extremely well. $1 million here, $1 million there. The generals then turn around and pay the colonels. Colonels go around there, and then the sergeants go out in the street, beat the snot out of the Venezuelans to keep everybody in line.
Okay.
That is how it's been done. The money has been coming from the Venezuelan oil, and they have not been putting capex back in. They don't have the talent. They don't have
Oh,
the
yeah.
offshore hands. They've got rid of everybody. And so this is a problem. They're just skimming any money that they
Yep.
can do. And that in Guyana, Shell has gotten into Guyana and they've got it. You've got the old Diamondback out there. You've got Hess.
Exxon's
You've got
there.
Anadarko. Exxon's there. I mean, everybody is sitting over in Guyana drilling. This is a big deal. I
Well, it's
I
one
don't
of
I think
it's
it's
one of the last few unexplored or hot new offshore targets.
absolutely, and I think it's going to be a bigger problem, and it's because Putin has been to his team. He's been talking to Maduro, and there is a bigger statement in here. There is something big going on there, and it's between Putin and China. Bitumen beyond combustion, how to triple oil sands value, reduce emissions, and create advanced material industry for 2% of battery subsidies. This is crazy. First, let me give Terry Etam out a shout. Michael, if you'll scroll down to the bottom of the article, and Andy, producer Andy, if you could roll the picture out. Terry sent me a book, and he says he signed it. Stu, you are the best podcast host in the industry. Grumpy Terry Etam. That was so nice of him to sign that book that it was really, really pretty cool. You know, to say I was the best podcast host. Notice he didn't put your name on there. Okay. So let's go up here to this article. What if some phenomenally large energy material breakthroughs were right in front of us? Dude, I don't care. I'm energy agnostic.
Yep.
I'd love to say, let's do it. Beyond combustion, how to triple the, let's see here. We might get more comfortable on nuclear energy. The world seems hell-bent on carbon-free energy, and the only way that's going to happen is if we meet 8 billion is nuclear power. I agree. Nuclear has got to happen. Let's go where he is talking about this. Okay, so coming out of the oil sands, just a real quick update on the oil sands. Oil sands, when they get done with that, it is the cleanest land on the planet. So, I mean, Canadians do a great job. Regulatory issues up there on that. So the barrel of bitumen as a whole, the BBC white paper estimates the following benefits. If 1 million barrels per day of bitumen is sold to refineries at $50 per barrel after diluent removal, the revenue is $18 billion per year. If the same volume was used to create BBC products, the potential revenue is $42 billion. The number includes the value is plus the value of the light ends remaining at 14. Unbelievable if you take a look at how all of this could come back around.
And it seems like they're funding it at just $30 million a year. That's how much is coming in the Canadian government. They could have $40 billion on the table, and instead they're like, we're just going to invest $30 million. It's insane.
It is. Terry Etam, I just want to give you a shout out. Don't tell him. That was my Biden imitation again. Don't tell Terry that he's a good guy. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Here's some energy technology that makes sense.
Yep.
Anyway.
And it's a way to sustainably make sure. I mean, if we're all about ESG, folks, this is stuff that can help. So we love Terry bringing that up.